Okay, well, welcome to the AlmaMAC. Today I have a very special guest, Dr. John Bandler. So, listeners might recall we had Dr. Bandler on last semester, and we talked about the ethics of science communication. And in that episode, we talked a lot about the 3-minute thesis. Well, it's coming up again. The competition is coming up, and Dr. Bandler is actually hosting a workshop on preparing to present all of that, scientific data, experimental data that you've collected in a nice, succinct 3 minutes. So I'd really like to thank you for coming on the show, and yeah.
Great, thanks, Adam. We had a great interview before. I was really impressed by what you pulled out of me, and we'll see what happens today. So I'm happy to be here.
Great. So this workshop, it's coming up next Thursday, correct?
Correct, yeah, Thursday at 5 p.m., ABB 102.
Okay. And so can you give us a little teaser of the kind of stuff that you'll be talking about during the workshop?
There's a few antics that we'll be pulling that will be a surprise even to Michelle and to Erica. So come and watch for yourself. Erica and Michelle don't know what's in store for them.
Okay, that's worth the price of admission right there. So the main idea is that you're going to be helping people compact their information.
Right, yeah. So on a more serious note, a 3-minute thesis, from my perspective over the years that I've been involved in it, can really be career changing. I mean, it can be totally career changing because most graduate students tend to be huddled in a lab or in a cubicle, day after day, week after week, churning out technical reports or even preparing presentations that are going to be delivered in a monotone, boring way. And it seems to be the fashion that a technical presentation has to bore everybody. Okay, and so everybody prepares a boring presentation because the previous one was boring, so mine should be boring. Maybe that's what they expect. Now, 3MT turns this on its head and says, you better be engaging, you better be clear. And the bottom line for me is, anybody who stumbles into that room while a 3-minute thesis presentation is going on should be able to get the gist of what is going on and should say, oh, that's amazing, and actually be compelled to stay there and finish rather than duck out because they don't understand anything. So the whole idea is to be able to communicate to the general public. And that's the essence of 3-minute thesis.
So what are the rules? It's 3 minutes. Slides? Yeah. One slide?
That's correct. Less than 3 minutes. I mean, 3 minutes is not a target. 3 minutes is the maximum.
Right, okay.
Okay, but some people see it as a target. You give somebody 20 minutes and they think of it as a target and they race towards 20 minutes. You give them 50, they race towards 50. You give them 3 and they think they have to race towards 3. But the whole idea is 3 is the maximum. So you can do it in 2.5, you can do it in 2, do it in 1 minute. One slide.
Right.
And that slide has to be up there the entire time. And one of the secrets that we'll be talking about in the workshop is the fact that we think of a picture as being equivalent to 1,000 words. Well, your 3-minute presentation had better not be much more than 350, 360 words. So the slide is actually projecting 1,000 words at that audience. And you don't want to overwhelm the audience. That slide has to actually be simple. Because if it has any detail in it whatsoever, the audience is going to be distracted from the speech and be focusing on the slides. What's going on? What is this? Why don't I understand it? So I emphasize simplicity on the slide. So anyway, one static slide, maximum 3 minutes, and there's a whole bunch of rules that you can see, for example, on the School of Graduate Studies website, or go to Queensland where the 3-minute thesis was born, see the rules for the judges. But, honestly, you can forget about those rules. The bottom line is it has to be understandable to anybody that walks into that room. And that's what the judges are actually looking for.
Okay. So I'm in the process of preparing for a conference from people within my field happening at the end of the month. So I'm preparing something completely different from what 3-minute thesis is all about. I'm concerned with methods and sort of the story of like what the full experiment is about and the nitpicky details are very important, but that's out the window in 3 minutes. There's just no
You
time.
can't do it. No, absolutely. You have to give an overview, and it's good that you brought that up, because in most technical papers, presentations, the experts expect you to unveil some of the details so they can verify the authenticity. One of the downsides with 3 Minute Thesis is, in a way, it's sort of so general, it's such an overview that, that you're not necessarily giving enough detail to make an expert feel comfortable necessarily, but that's not the point of it.
Right.
So I always indicate you have to hook the audience, draw them in, tell them, in a way, convey who you are, what your qualifications are, in a very simple way. You say, my name is John Smith and I'm a PhD student. That's enough. And then indicate why you're in this. Why is it important to the listener? What does it do for that person who's listening? And give an overview, a quick gist of what the idea is and the results might be, and then bring it full circle to how you hooked them in the first place.
Yeah, sort of whetting their appetite. You don't have to give them the whole meal.
No, the whole idea is to get the audience to want more. In a typical technical presentation, most people want less.
Right.
I mean, how many technical presentations have you been in where you say, I wish the speaker would stop, I wish this thing would end?
I was happy at the 3 minute mark. 3 minutes seemed all right.
Well, now here's something that I have seen done, and it works very effectively. I co-proposed and organized a 3 Minute Thesis competition for an IEEE conference in Honolulu in 2017. And some of the contestants, including Daniel Tajik, who is from McMaster University, who won and was also the audience choice, what he did and what some of the others did is they reduced their 3 minute presentation to maybe a minute or so, perhaps with their slide, and used that as an intro to their technical presentation.
Wow.
And
That's
I
a good
thought
idea.
that was very effective. Some of them did that very effectively.
Yeah.
Even if you spend 2 or 3 minutes, at least you address the broad audience. Even technical people appreciate that.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of overlap between what you want to be doing at the beginning of a technical presentation and what 3 Minute Thesis is all about.
Right.
That kind of makes sense. You really, for what I'm preparing for the end of the month, I really need to set the stage and motivate it well.
Right.
And make sure people want to stay in the room and not go to another session.
Exactly. And honestly, technical people, and take a thesis defense, particularly with people who are outside your field, outside your department, they really appreciate why this is useful, and so in fact they often ask questions. So why don't you short circuit that and start off with a 1 minute presentation or a 3 minute presentation from a very, very general point of view, rather than diving straight into mathematics, for example.
Yeah, and it gives them something to grip on too when they're applying the tougher stuff, if you're taking this through a technical.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So I'd like to think of this 3 minute thing as like you're stuck on an elevator for a couple minutes with somebody and they say...
That's a long elevator. But anyway,
we're stuck.
Yeah, that's right.
Or very short bus ride.
Right.
Just get them interested.
Well, it's a little more than an elevator pitch. In fact, the elevator pitch may even be more difficult to produce. Generally speaking, the shorter the presentation that you commit yourself to, the harder it is to prepare. So,
right.
The longer the presentation, it gives you freedom to roam around in all kinds of directions. 3 minutes or 20 seconds in an elevator pitch doesn't give you much time.
Yeah, that's true. Well, with that in mind, maybe we can do something extra special for this episode.
Great.
We have a couple examples, so let's maybe hop over to YouTube, check them out, and then talk about them a little bit.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. All right, and I'm going to set this.
I can cough.
X-rays cause cancer. It's a little unnerving to think about, isn't it? I'm sure most of us here have had X-ray scans done at some point in our lives, and it's obvious why. the benefits of diagnosing diseases outweighs the risks of creating cancer. Yet it begs a question. Is this really the best we can do? I think there may be a better way. Microwaves. And no, I'm not talking about the kind I cook my popcorn in. I'm talking about microwave radiation, similar in power level to the Wi-Fi signals bouncing all around us. You see, in comparison to X-rays, microwaves have a clear advantage. They're non-ionizing, which means they don't cause cancer. You may be saying to yourself, that sounds amazing, but why don't we see this in hospitals right now? And the answer to that is twofold. It either takes hours to produce an image, or the image resolution is too poor to see anything. And that is where my work steps in. My name is Daniel Tajik, and I'm developing an algorithm known as microwave holography. Microwave holography is a mathematical strategy to reconstructing 2D and 3D images. It works by performing a mapping between two things. One, an estimate of how the electromagnetic waves travel inside human tissue, and two, a blurry microwave image. By mapping these two things together, I can extract a clear image. Now, there are other imaging strategies out there that perform some kind of mapping. But in order to understand how those electromagnetic waves travel, they have to use expensive computers that take hours. I do something a little bit different. I image a blueberry. Okay, that may sound a little bit ridiculous, but hear me out. Blueberries are easy to handle, and their electrical properties very closely mimic that of tissue. By measuring the electrical properties of a blueberry, I gain an understanding of how those electromagnetic waves travel inside and around tissue. This makes my algorithm run in seconds, and incredibly, appears to improve image resolution. It seems that it's actually better to rather measure how those electromagnetic waves travel inside tissue than to try and estimate how they travel using expensive computers. My goal is to bring microwave holography to clinical use in the next 5 years. So hopefully, the next time you go to get a scan done, instead of thinking, is this going to give me cancer? You're thinking, what smells like popcorn? Thank you.
Now, you see, he took a bit of a risk there. Because he's talking about cancer detection, and then at the end he ends on a kind of a lighter note about sniffing and popcorn. And I co-supervise Daniel, and he spent the better part of 2 or 3 months preparing and rehearsing that. He really did a lot of work on it, and I remember telling him that ending could be highly controversial. You know, you don't know how the audience is going to react.
Right. Some people might think like you should be taking this more seriously.
Exactly.
Don't joke around with this.
Exactly.
I guess the subject of the joke, though, is not so.
Yeah.
So
well, let me give you a spoiler alert.
Oh.
We'll be talking about gender issues.
Okay.
You know, and at least I will bring that up in the workshop, and whether a man can get away with jokes while a woman may not be able to get away with jokes on serious subjects. So, spoiler alert, let's see what conclusion we come to on Thursday at 5 o'clock in ABB 102.
Well, there you go. So something that I actually noticed as well that maybe you can weigh in on, the point of the blueberry in this whole thing, that's just something he puts into just as a model.
He actually does experiments with it. So he what is the word? He does actual experiments with pieces of chicken, with jam and peanut butter, and embeds blueberries in that kind of mix, because it has sort of electrical properties that are similar to human tissue, so that he can simulate human tissue without actually having to use it.
Okay, so based on the picture, at first guess I would have imagined when he's talking about using blueberries, and it's like, why would you care about using blueberries? It just seems like a weird thing. You're talking about cancer. And then
and remember, that slide was up, although you don't see it in the video, and that's another issue that I'll talk about. When you watch videos, you know, do you see the slide the whole time? Is it, how did the videographer do the editing and processing? All of this is something that the judges didn't see. So the judges will reach an opinion based on what they saw live, not on the video. So coming back to this, remember the judges and the audience would have seen that for that entire length of time. What is that blueberry doing there? But it's a very simple slide, so it's not very complex. They don't have to really kind of scratch their heads too much.
Right.
But then he unveils that mystery about halfway through the presentation.
Yeah. It's an interesting like split between like the blueberry big picture doesn't really matter for the like overarching motivation.
Good point.
But it's very important for the specific stuff that he does.
Exactly.
So I actually really like that.
And he gestures to it. That slide plays a role, and he gestures at it.
Yeah.
It's not an afterthought. That was very carefully selected. What happens so many times is students will write a script, prepare the script, and figure out, how should I decorate this with a slide? And that's usually thumbs down.
Right.
Because then they have no particular reason for referring to the slide.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked it. It seemed like it was really what opened the door to making this specific to him.
Right,
Which was
exactly,
kinda
exactly. And Michel Ogrodnik, who was partly helpful in the rehearsal process, dubs him Blueberry Man.
Is that the choice of tie
Yes,
associated
Blueberry
with
Man.
this as well?
Well, talking about ties, don't joke. We have, with serious 3MT students that I will coach, and I'm happy to work one-on-one with anybody that walks in my door, up to a limit, okay? But we may have dress rehearsals, literally, with ties, shirts, how long the tie needs to be.
Well, it's the first thing people see, really.
Absolutely.
Right?
First impressions are really important.
I like sometimes you see these like political people will sort of dissect what a politician is wearing and everything, and like the news likes to eat that up when there's not a lot else to talk about.
No.
But I like the rolled up sleeves. You can tell he gets in the lab and he does stuff.
That's a good. To be honest with you, I hadn't noticed that. That's a great touch.
Not sure if that's just out of comfort, but it said something to me, I guess.
Yeah. No. Good. A really good point. You know what's interesting about gestures and about dress and so on? If everything works, it becomes transparent. You don't see it. It doesn't jump out at you.
Right.
And that's what you want. So that's right. You know, in all these years, I hadn't noticed that he'd rolled up his sleeves.
Oh.
So that's something new.
Yes. Okay, so let's see. What else can we point out about this guy? His hand gestures were not over the top, not like
Correct.
taking away from anything.
They looked authentic.
They did.
They didn't look overly practiced.
I like the consistency with microwaves always being.
Correct. And he used the analogy, as I say, to try to dispel the idea that he's building a microwave oven or cooking something. In fact, if you think carefully about it, when you use microwaves to detect breast cancer, the last thing you want to do is to heat up the tissue.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite of cooking.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I personally wasn't thinking microwave oven when he started talking about it until he said it, but I don't think I'm the average person in the room necessarily.
No, exactly.
And so that person's probably thinking the whole time,
That's right.
microwave oven, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He's targeting a different audience than necessarily the most technically minded.
Right.
Okay, so we have another one.
Yes. That's Canxiu Zhang. And of course, he's from the electrical and computer engineering department here at McMaster. By the way, he's at Apple in California doing an internship right now.
Oh, wow. That would be a cool one to get into.
Yeah.
Huh. I wonder if he gets to sleep in their nap pods during the workday.
I think there's a lot of perks that they have over there, including free food, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They really just want you to live in their office.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, well. Okay, so I'm going to reset this.
Good.
And then we'll
Good.
start up again. Okay, and that one was...
Have you, your relatives, your friends
It's immediately
ever
engaging.
suffered from a stroke? A
Which
stroke could
immediately
happen
makes
to
it
you
relatable.
at any time. You may even be completely unaware of it. Late diagnosis could result in permanent disability or even death. My name is Canxiu. I want to detect this condition earlier and prevent these tragedies from occurring.
So this video is a little different in that we
Let me
get to
tell you
see
about the brain.
the slide right away.
Brain
That's
cell
right.
activity
I was involved
generate brain
in the
waves.
processing of this when I decided
They reveal
to
information about
have it
this
there the whole
activity,
time.
like billions of
In fact,
radio
I was involved in
stations
the processing of the
transmitting
other one as
data
well.
every single second. This information can include abnormal cerebral blood flow, which is a sign of brain stroke. This information is key, but challenging to extract from the massive amount of data. My research is to find the brainwave informations most relative to the brain strokes and detect it in a quick and easy way. I calculated a list of numbers, each number representing how brain activity changes in the different locations of the brain at different times.
Notice all her gestures are meaningful.
However,
And they help
these
to
numbers are encrypted
embed the idea
in a
in the
higher
audience's
dimensional
mind.
space. It's like trying to read a message on a crumpled paper ball. So, how would you read this information? By unfolding the piece of paper, of course! This is exactly what I did mathematically. After I unfolded the special higher dimensional space of the numbers
That's
I
as technical as
calculated,
she gets.
the
higher
difference between brain
dimensional
waves from a normal person compared to a person who had a stroke became clear and detectable. My method was able to detect a stroke with 92% accuracy within 30 seconds. Now I'm working on the next step. After unfolding, stretching the space to make that difference even clearer for detection. In the future, a stroke still could happen to you at any time. But this time, you will be aware of it. Your loved ones, your family members can help you better. Thank you.
She came second in that competition. Daniel came first. And honestly, he had a run for his money in that competition because she was very good. She worked enormously hard on that.
Not in permanent.
I helped. I coached both of them. Of course, I coached her as well. And no, she worked incredibly hard. Her presentation skills just absolutely soared in a few days.
Wow. Yeah, this one seemed particularly difficult because it's not immediately experimental. I feel like
It's very abstract, highly mathematical. I went to her master's defense. Trust me, it was just one equation after another. It seemed to bear no relationship to this presentation.
wow. I really like the crumpled paper analogy too.
Right.
I never really thought about
brilliant
that,
stroke.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a brilliant stroke.
So I noticed it seemed like her hand gestures and stuff are a bit more dramatic and
Right.
more like almost like pointing towards things, like
Right.
like brain stroke and things like that.
Correct.
If you recall, did you discuss with her that? Was that like a specific
Oh yes,
strategy?
absolutely. Well, it has to look natural, and you when I work with students one-on-one, I work with what they feel comfortable
Yeah.
in. I give them some generic suggestions, like I'm doing right now with my hands. If they can adopt them as their own, that's fine. If not, they use whatever is reasonable. But I have a little teaser about my workshop, and that is many people have used Daniel's presentation as a template.
Okay.
In fact, Matthew Campier from Chemical Engineering in the 2019 McMaster competition, instead of a blueberry, he used a ham sandwich. He got the idea from the blueberry because he watched those videos, and he won the competition. But other people have used her presentation as a template, and when we watch Erica Dow's, you'll see the similarity.
Okay.
But formulas tend to work. And that's why advertisers seem to have the same formula, and
Yeah.
it may be annoying. Oh my God, they're using exactly the same formula, but it works.
Yeah.
And she's using story format. She starts off with you, your relatives, your friends, and then ends on your loved ones. So she returns back to how she began the story. A little bit more than Daniel Tajik does.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. It definitely seemed more like she's talking to me. I don't know if that's
Right,
if that's
absolutely,
intentional.
absolutely. That is intentional.
Yeah.
That is intentional.
I also noticed her pacing was, I would say it's much slower than Daniel's.
Mm-hmm.
And she really emphasized specific words to really hit you.
And there's another reason for that. That's the pronunciation issue and the clarity issue. I really emphasize articulation and clarity of speech very, very strongly, because if the audience misses just one or two words, if one or two words just don't come through clearly, sometimes the whole deck of cards falls apart. So she was really concentrating on clarity.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially in 3 minutes where you
Right.
have, I mean, if you have 300 words to say and you miss one, that's
Exactly,
a higher
exactly.
fraction.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I like about this?
Brendan's still sick.
She bowed at the end in
Yeah,
a very
that was-
authentic way.
That was nice. She moved around a lot too.
She did move around, yeah. She was, and she also did look as if she was looking at people.
Yeah,
You know, as a human being, someone else can tell. For example, someone else in this room can tell whether I'm looking at you in the eyes or whether I'm staring past you.
yeah.
So my micro expressions were probably a little bit different if I'm actually looking at you than if I'm looking at another object.
Right.
And so you get the feeling that she's actually looking at people.
hmm She shows so much concern on her face throughout
Right.
this too. It's really authentic. It's quite nice.
Yeah, definitely, and that's a good template that's been, other students have copied her template, which is, well, imitation is the best form of flattery, they say.
Yeah. If you can invent a new template, then by all means do so.
And that's a good question, because your interviewers, Sean Hercules and Matthew Berry, who are sort of seasoned veterans in 3MT, they have some pretty original presentations themselves, and Matthew Berry's is an unbeatable. That's difficult to have a template, because he studies the science of acting, and he's an actor, and he's a scientist, and so he can actually act authentically on the stage and have a structure of a presentation which is unlike anything else, and that propelled him right through to the Ontario competition. So
Yeah, he was a superstar.
yeah, exactly. But how do you create a template out of that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's tough.
difficult act to follow.
Come to this workshop and maybe you'll find
That's
it.
right, exactly.
So we have one more, but this is going to be one of the subjects of your workshop.
Right.
So maybe we'll just play it for the audience
Sure.
and just sort of leave it
Sure.
Leave it as a
Absolutely.
teaser.
Absolutely. So we've done a little bit of an analysis. Let's play this. Do you want to talk afterwards, or we have still? Or is it over after that?
I think it's going to probably be over. We
Okay.
went pretty long, so maybe we'll close it off here and then
Good.
just end the
Good.
episode with
Good.
her presentation and leave
Okay.
it as a
And-
strong
and-
finish.
Okay. Because all I wanted to say here was that we're going to do it. She is going to do an in-depth analysis of it. She's
Okay.
going to analyze the script. She's going to analyze the gestures. She's going to analyze it step by step by step in the workshop.
So that's going to be
That's
definitely worth seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So before we hit play, I'd just like to thank you again for being on the show. This was awesome. I'm really excited for the workshop,
Thanks,
which is
Adam.
coming up on Thursday.
Yeah.
13th.
Thursday, ABB 102. Please come. It'll be fun, and there'll be some unexpected things will happen.
And it's a workshop and not just a lecture, right? There's
Correct.
going to be some
Yeah,
interaction.
absolutely, totally. We make it totally interactive. We allow interruption at any time, and in fact, if they don't interrupt, I will interrupt myself and ask the audience questions.
So there it is. Don't miss it. It's coming up.
Thank you, Adam.
So here's Erica Dow.
Your mother, your grandmother, your aunt, a friend, or maybe even you. We all know somebody that has been affected by breast cancer. But what you might not know is how hard it is to locate a cancerous tumor exactly. With imaging technology, we can find out where the cancer is, and we can also find out where the cancer is not. But what's really hard is to actually find that boundary where cancerous tissue and healthy tissue transition. Where does cancer begin? Is it here? Is it there? Or is it there? This is a real challenge. Surgeons face this every single day. In fact, many breast cancer patients that have their tumor surgically removed have to come back a second time to get what was missed the first time. How can we prevent this? My name is Erica Dow, and my PhD project involves developing a tool that surgeons can use right in the operating room to detect breast cancer. I study how breast tissue behaves when it's stimulated with optical light and X-rays. I look for trends in parameters such as how long do the tissues emit light after being illuminated? Or how does the reflected light disperse in different directions? And what are the tissues made of at an elemental level? I use these patterns to create an algorithm for tissue classification. So how does the device work? Well, it's going to be used when it absolutely matters most, during surgery. A surgeon will place this pen-like probe right on top of the breast tissue. It'll emit light and also measure what is emitted or reflected. Within seconds, it will report either cancerous, remove the tissue, or non-cancerous, leave it in place. This device will help surgeons navigate this gray area so that they know exactly how much tissue to remove. Not too little and risk leaving cancer still in the body, but also not too much and unnecessarily removing completely healthy tissue. My goal is that within the next few years, we will have the technology to keep my loved ones and your loved ones as whole as possible. Thank you.